Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Just in Time Cafe webinar. I'm Tracy O'Rourke, co-founder of the Just in Time Cafe. I'm going to be your moderator today, and today's webinar is titled How to Use Lean Root Cause Thinking to Win at Strategic Planning, featuring Toyota veteran Jen Tankenow. Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here today.
Me too. Thanks for coming to the cafe.
Absolutely.
So let me tell you a little bit about Jen if you don't know who she is before she gets started. So she is co-founder and vice president of Joint Pivot. She is built on her years at Toyota, bringing her lean sensibility to the broader business world. She's a teacher, a leader, a facilitator, helping clients apply the Toyota production system, strategic planning, change management, and continuous improvement. She partners with companies to solve problems and create strategic plans so they can hit her goals. She's a veteran of personalized, repeatable solutions that stick. Very important. So before I let her take it away, just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. You can ask questions anytime by entering them into the chat window. There's also a question area, but we'll be using the chat area in particular throughout the webinar. We do welcome your participation. So Jen's going to be asking you some thoughtful and reflective questions throughout the session. And these webinar recordings will be available for free, and we'll post them on the Just in Time Cafe website in the coming weeks. So we also want to know a little bit about who's joining us today. So if you haven't already, join us for our first activity, which is telling us where you're from. We have people register from all over the world, and we'd love to know where you are coming from right now and what time it is. So go ahead and type in the chat window. And I see that there are some people that have already commented. So Chuck from Philadelphia, Stephen from Olympia, Washington. Hello, Mike Osterling from San Diego. We also have Liam from the Isle of Man. Welcome again. We saw him last webinar too. Samantha from Kansas City. Todd from Lompoc. Hey, Todd. We also have Douglas from Jacksonville, Jessica from Ottawa, Canada, and Jordan too. We have Dion from LA and Lisa from Kansas City so far. So we've got international as well as domestic attendees today, Jen, coming to see you and hearing about what we could do about our procrastination. So I'm going to go ahead and let you take it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. It's been so fun talking with you and Elizabeth over the last couple months, kind of thinking about this concept, putting it together, adding on to things that we've already talked about. So I'm super excited to be here today and with your audience. Real quick, just a little bit more about Joint Pivot. For those of you who don't know who I am and Joint Pivot is, I co-founded it with my good friend and leader, Julie Miller. We co-founded it in fall of 2019. So we made it through 2020. Huge milestone, right? And why do we do it? Well, we love what we do. We love solving problems and creating partnerships with individuals and companies. And we like to create solutions, as Tracy said, that stick and that are repeatable. And it might mean that we work ourselves out of a job with our engagement, but by golly, if a company's better off, then we feel good and we're happy about it. What do? We can perform services. You can outsource to us if you don't have that skill set or expertise. We're happy to train your teams, whether it's to level up their skills or eventually take over what we're training and train the trainer model and do it at your organization. And of course, we love to speak. We love partnering with people just like this with the Just in Time Cafe. We love improving our knowledge, sharing what we know and have experienced, because overall it helps us improve, and we're just happy to get better, know better, and continue to share better practices. So with that, we are moving into our presentation today, and I have Own Your Impact, because it's really up to you. It's up to you to make a choice on how you're going to approach what you do. Your role as a leader, as an individual contributor, it's your choice to do whatever needs to be done and take those next steps. I did a leadership training last week, and we had a large conversation that it was up to them to have a choice, or to take their choice and pause before they think, pause before they say, pause before they start to, attack a problem. Sometimes life's not fun, right? Adulting, it stinks. It's tiresome. It's frustrating. It's expensive. But no matter what, it is what it is, and we have to overcome it. And so we hope today to talk about some new approaches on how to deal with issues, roadblocks, new concepts, or maybe improved concepts for planning for yourself and your company. We are taking a high level look at strategic planning. But the cool thing about it is don't just think that strategic planning is for leaders in corner offices. It's for small, medium, and large size businesses. It's for individuals. It's also for leaders of departments or functions. So if your company doesn't have any kind of strategic planning process, it doesn't matter. You can still own it. Crush your goals, outperform, demonstrate your motivation, and again, own your impact. No matter what, be prepared. Be prepared to ask for help. Obviously, you can call all of us. We're happy to talk to anyone and talk about issues and move yourself out of that. So think about your expectations as you're going through this. What do you obviously expect to learn? I want you to take a couple things home with you. We're giving a lot of content, but I want you to think about one or two things that you can do when you leave here. That's it. Or you can take everything, but that's a lot. And so moving into why do we plan? I'm assuming for those of you who are on this call, if you're in some sort of Venn diagram with Tracy and Elizabeth, I don't have to really go into the background of planning. I think we all know it's creating a series of activities or steps in some sort of logical order of operation to accomplish something. We plan because we want to know how much something's going to cost, like a major project, renovating your kitchen, right? You got to understand paint and countertops and, you know, drawers. And if you need a KitchenAid thing that, you open the door and it pops out and your KitchenAid pops up, you need to understand how much that's going to cost or how much long it's going to take. Planning a wedding or planning a major initiative at your company, right? It's a big deal. Planning helps you understand the inputs to put together that communication plan, the visual. Something to think about too when you think about your life is consolidating activities. How do you, on a Saturday morning, I go to the grocery store, I go to Lowe's, I pick up a child, I drop off a child, I don't know, have to go get new ice skates or ballet shoes or something. Gosh darn it, I did groceries first, right? We don't do that. We would do that last because I don't want groceries sitting in the back of my car for 2 hours. I'm thinking, I'm planning. Vacations. How do you approach vacations? Do you just want to go with the flow? Maybe your exact plan is to just show up and do nothing, but leave enough time that if something fun comes up, you'll take advantage of it. Otherwise, you're just going to go back to your umbrella and get some sort of fruity drink and hang out. But if your goal of a vacation is to relax, not get sunburned, and not make too many decisions, you can, at the end of that, you can figure out, did I actually accomplish that? And if it is, that's a huge win, even if you did nothing. Can you outsource planning? Absolutely. Call us. We're happy to help out. I'm currently working on 3 projects for one company because they don't have time because they're growing like mad and they don't have the skill set. So they're bringing people in to help them move forward. Now, one of my favorite reasons of planning is predictable outcomes. I love, as Tracy mentioned this in the opening, we preach this constantly. Clients, husbands, kids, all the time. We want to get what we plan, right? Because that makes life, at least for me, far more calm and manageable. But at companies, we want predictable outcomes. That's why we do processes and we plan, et cetera. So feel free to add to the chat reasons why you plan, other reasons. There's many. Tracy, this leads into our question. I guess you can add why you plan, but even more exciting, what kind of planner do you think you are? And it's funny, Tracy. In college, I used to get all my homework done on campus, so I could be ready for anything at night. Random party or somewhere to go. I'm like, yep, my homework's done, my essay's done, I'm ready for my quiz. I was far more motivated. Sometimes now I procrastinate a little bit more as I've gotten older.
Yes. Well, I definitely want to have some people type in, what kind of planner are you? I was thinking about this question and, it's funny, I change depending on what it is. right? I'm the planner, the vacation planner for our family. I will plan everything and I'll think about how many days we're going to spend somewhere and where we're going to go and how we're going to get to the next thing and the activities we're going to do. And when it comes to other things, like trying to get my teenagers to do something like go on a hike with me, I don't plan anything. I just ask, and if they don't come, oh well. I'm off on my own. And the other thing is work related. I tend to be very strategic, but then I sometimes wait uh, almost, into the 11th hour to plan out the very specific detailed stuff, which is interesting too, because I tend to operate under pressure pretty well, but doesn't mean I should do that.
No, it's stressful. Like I lose sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big checklist.
Yeah,
Check.
I'm a checklister too.
I can cross it off. And
Mike says, I'm better at coaching people on planning.
yeah,
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to say? He's a checklister as well.
yeah.
So if there's
Well,
any more comments, I'll go ahead and shout them out at some point.
okay. And I'll move to the next slide because it might prompt some additional comments. So before you're thinking about your method of planning, right, or how you're going to approach a project or a strategic plan, right, it's kind of nice to know what you're dealing with. And like Tracy said, your style could change based on the situation, based on the urgency. Um, so we're getting some more. This is
Got a few
fun.
more. Liam says he's a visual planner. Charles says proper planning prevents poor performance. He's got 4 or 5 P's in there, so that's good. I've recently become more of a loose planner, if that makes any sense. I have a process, but I hold on to it loosely. Yeah, it's kind of like structure with freedom. I kind of like that too. Very nice.
Mhm. Cool. Feel free to add them. The alliteration is amazing. So sometimes with planning, as I mentioned earlier, you need to reach out for help, supplement a skill set. And I know I can imagine past bosses and leaders who are like, no, we're never going to outsource this. That's too expensive. It'll take too much time. No, in reality, it might actually be cheaper. And speaking from real life, if I can come help and do some sort of requirements gathering or help you figure out a process, yes, you're paying for me. Yes, you have to onboard me and get me familiar with it. But in the end, you're going to have far less rework and it'll probably be faster. So, again, freeing up time and resources for the companies to add value. Also, something to think about is, has 2020 changed your style? Are you more go with the flow? Are you more creative in finding things to do? And I know for us, I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have found various things to do outside that we may not have in previous years. One thing obviously is driveway happy hour. Huge win in my family. Last week we had a sledding party in our backyard and we had a carafe of hot cocoa and maybe some adult, mixers in with that. Would we have done that last year? No. Why? I don't know. Will we do it next year? Absolutely, because it was so much fun. Um, Other things to think about when you're planning is you get thrown off track a lot, right? You have leaders who don't want you to take the time to do it. You've got people who don't want to participate, and that's hard. It makes things very challenging to get things done and meet, leadership expectations. It's not fun, but being aware of that, you can probably adjust the way you attack the plan or the project, knowing that you're going to have that additional roadblock. And we'll talk about roadblocks in a second. If you're going on vacation, again, do you go to a place where you're just going to lay on the beach, or are you like my dad who does all those like Viking riverboat cruises because they have an itinerary already built in, and he knows that they'll figure out where to stop and when it happens, and he doesn't have to plan besides getting the plane tickets and getting there. Have you ever backpacked through a country, gone on a whim anywhere? And I did this once in 2000. A friend quit her job and bought a ticket to Argentina. And she said, I'll be there in November. Who's coming? And I did. I bought a ticket and I met her there, which is so not me. But I had to lower my expectations and I had to prepare myself and say, go with the flow, right? Just live in the moment and have fun. And we accomplished a lot. We drank a lot of wine. We ate a lot of meat. We drank a lot of wine. We saw a professional soccer game, which is probably one of the most amazing experiences in my entire life. And it was so cool because I had low expectations. So anything we did was going to be awesome. I'm not going to apply my Argentina planning style to a project with a known goal, though, right? If a company's going to want me to work on something, I'm definitely going to put some sort of plan in place. But something to also think about when you're planning, and if you're an aggressive planner or you're someone who has to have every detail down, always remember that you can't plan for everything, which is sometimes very uncomfortable for people. But what you can plan to do is plan to have your ears open, your eyes open, your ears ready to hear and be ready to watch, arming yourself with major milestones along the way so you can monitor progress of the project. And if you understand, current state and where you're going, you can hopefully maneuver and watch out for some of those landmines and potholes that might be in the way. And understanding what kind of planner you are or being armed with different planning styles can help you deal with both work and life types of projects and really everything in between. Different styles of planning. Obviously, you've got strategic planning, which is big picture, more long term, anywhere from 1 to 3 to 5 years, not only for businesses, you can also do it for your life. Um, Operational planning, day to day, getting things done, tactical, right? Some people love tactical because I can shoot from the hip and I can just get it done and it's okay. Less scoping activity there. But one type of planning that I definitely want to bring up is contingency planning, risk mitigation, the one that's almost always forgotten, in projects or even activities. My dad, I know when he travels, my parents, he'll make like 4 copies of his passport. And now it's different, but I remember he would give a couple to me. He had them in his suitcase, his backpack, everywhere, just in case something was stolen, he knew he would be able to get home. Um, Other reasons we like to obviously have risk mitigation activity is to prevent major catastrophic catastrophes in projects. I know that there's some people I've worked with in the past who did not want to do any kind of risk mitigation. And just can you guess why? They want to be the superhero, right? And they know that they can come in and save the day. So, of course, they want fires to happen because then they get to look like they saved the day, they were the hero, etc. I can't stand that, right? I want to plan and understand and make sure the right people are involved so we don't have to have that, right? Prevent stress, prevent pressure. And it's also possible to maybe not necessarily plan for the unknown, but it's 100% possible to know how you're going to plan when the unknown occurs. I had a leader who was phenomenal at this. I worked for a consumer packaging company, and we often got calls that something was stuck at the border, a machine broke down, Pepsi wasn't going to get their bottles in time, and that's a big deal or a huge customer. He did the same thing every single time. He would stand up wherever he was in a meeting at his desk with someone, and he would walk to find the general manager, and he would inform him what happened, what he was going to do, and then he would figure out a solution. He'd get the right people on the phone, the right people in the room, and they would assemble a plan. Sometimes it involved calling the customer. Sometimes it involved, pulling in vendors. Who knows? But he dealt with it so calm that it left a mark on me. I love it. And so I do this now. How can I prepare myself to plan for those unknowns, right? An employee issue, a major issue at a company where, a supplier can't get something. You can definitely plan on how you're going to handle it. So take a look at this list here, the work life and everything in between. There are a lot of decisions in each of these that have to happen. And for me, I know that's one reason why I procrastinate, because you have to make a decision. What am I going to do? Celebrating with your team sounds so easy. We tell leaders that they need to do this all the time, have engagement, create motivation. But there's a decision involved there. What are we going to do? Is it going to be during work, after work? Are we going to buy them something? Are we going to go somewhere? It's something, like what do these people like to do for fun? It creates an angst, which can then prevent us from actually doing it. When in reality, ask them, try it together. Say we're going to be celebrating a couple times this year, so some people aren't going to like it all the time. You just got to try something. And also, if you notice on the slide, there's a lot more life activities on here than work. And I didn't do that on purpose. I just kind of discovered it as I've been reviewing this deck. And if you subtracted sleep, right, from our 24 hours a day, Where do you spend most of your time? At work. But where do most of the items actually fall on this slide? In life, right? And so if you are a leader, right, of people, or work with others, it's so important to understand what else is going on in people's heads that's preventing them from being successful at work. And if you look at all these life things, it's there. And for some of you, you've got kids at home on Zoom school. They're not going out to recess like they used to. You've got people who need to make doctor's appointments and get things done, and there's major things going on. So um, how are you as a leader helping them be successful? Helping them not get so stressed out that all of a sudden they just hit a complete wall and can't perform. How are you giving them time to deal with life, right? Hey, take the next 3 hours and deal with life. Schedule your doctor's appointments. Go return those items to Target. Whatever it is, get that stuff out of their head so they can focus on work, right? So they can overcome any hurdles, keep motivation, and be excited. Other things to do as leaders of individuals is make sure that you're communicating clear goals, painting the vision, getting them excited on where you're going. So there's no question or ambiguity or assumptions that are being made, which again helps them support the plan, get the job done, cross the finish line, which is essentially what is obviously what we want as leaders in companies, individual contributors. We all want to win and support the company in the defined manner. And so, with that, how does planning make you feel? And maybe it's not necessarily planning, but maybe the end result, right? Just I I like planning. I love Saturday morning, getting my coffee, sitting on the couch, and putting our weekend together, going through the Meyer app, finding items that are on sale, making my grocery list. What am I going to cook and prepare? Like that makes me happy because I know I am going to be very productive. So, but there's other times where I maybe don't like planning when the unknown is there, people are in my way. But anywho, overall, I like planning. And thinking about the feelings and expectations to help you get things done. The story I have here is last fall, and I don't know why I stopped doing it, but I did. I'll bring it back up very soon. Friday school for my kids is actually now done at like 1:30. It used to be done at 3 o'clock ish. And I would have a family come over for happy hour. Number one, their kids can play with my kids, right? Great, everyone's happy. And then we can, as adults, enjoy driveway happy hour, right? It's a win-win. And when this one particular family was about to come over, I'm like, oh, you know what? I have a feeling we're going to hit 5:45. We're all going to be hungry and want dinner. But you know what? I'm tired of Domino's. I'm tired of pizza. I know my kids are going to not want to eat it and then it's just going to be chaos. And I don't want the leftovers in my fridge, right? So I'm pre-thinking like, what are my expectations? What do I want to happen around 6 o'clock? So I thought, let's do tacos. It's versatile enough for even the pickiest eater, from 2-year-olds to 7-year-olds and adults, nachos, tacos, fajitas, whatever. I also thought about the experience I wanted for my husband and our guests. I didn't want the guests to have to bring anything or do anything. And I didn't want my husband to have to do anything besides grill the chicken when he got home from work. Because my husband, if you know him, great person, but if I'm throwing him into situations when he's getting home from work, it's not a great idea. And I didn't want that. So over the course of some 4 hours on that Friday, we went to the grocery store. I prepped the chicken. I made salsa. I made guacamole. I did so much in the span of 4 hours, including a couple conference calls for work. I was amazed. But again, I had a plan. I knew what I was doing. I knew the ingredients. I knew what to start when. It was a beautiful ballet. And in the end, the accolades were amazing. Our friends had an amazing time. They didn't have to do anything. They just got to enjoy our family, our house, our outside, and just being together. My husband kept commenting. He's like, "It was so easy." Wow, I'll never forget his face. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because I did everything." But besides that, he was like, "This was easy." And so that stuck with me. All right, I made it easy for him. How do I continue to make it easy for him so he can continue to have people over? Yes, it was work for me, and yes, it was tiring, but it wasn't ridiculous. I knew exactly what I was doing, so I wasn't getting myself all frazzled. And plus, I didn't have to clean my house because no one was going to be inside. So that was a huge win. And I made it smooth sailing for my husband. So I can get buy-in for future events and activities. And I think we often fail because smooth sailing is boring at companies. I know that sounds weird, but it's boring. People sometimes like the fireworks and the problems and the fires and the superheroes want to come in and save everything. But I don't want that. I want smooth sailing. And so if we think about the results we want to achieve and the experience we want everyone to have, we need to sell a level of calmness, of planning, of pulling in the right inputs and the right people, right? So we can assemble that plan. And yes, sell boring, right? Because if it achieves results, maybe even faster than expected, with less, risk and concerns, and by golly, I don't know who wouldn't want it. There are people who love chaos, but it's inefficient. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of resources. And it only appeals to a handful of people. So let's squash that and sell smooth sailing to everyone. And so think about, what does planning make you feel, as I asked? But as I talked about this, what are your roadblocks? What are your hurdles? What's preventing you from smooth sailing? What's preventing you from even starting? And so go ahead and add it into the chat. Um, what's stopping you? I don't know, Tracy, I obviously have a handful of holdups. Um, I try and overcome them all the time, but you know, they're always there.
Well, what I've heard so far is you mentioned planning happy hour twice in this conversation. I think we need to plan a happy hour together. So that's
Oh,
good.
yes, I'll go in my driveway.
I'm a planner too. And, I do have holdups sometimes or roadblocks. And I had to really think what would hold me back. And there's two things I thought of. One was there's buy-in that still needs to happen about what it is we're setting out to do. So people either are not on board or we have to do a little checking in still. And then the second one is uncertainty. So as an example, um, okay, I grew up at high school in the 80s. Some high school band was coming out and, I said, does anybody want to go to this? And like 20 people said, yes. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy the tickets. I'm going to buy the tickets. Who wants me to buy a ticket? And, no, all of a sudden sounds great, but really, who's committing? And so I couldn't really plan because people were uncertain. We didn't really know. And I didn't want to buy a bunch of tickets and then have nobody buy, get them. So those are the two things involving people really. And, and, that's just part of the process, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So those are mine.
Absolutely.
Let's see what other people have to say. What do we do when fireworks happen and everything starts to go sideways, no matter how much we've planned? That's been a bummer for me. So that's a question for you from Dion. What do you think?
Oh, I've my head's going so many places. I think I have to understand why. Why are the fireworks happening? And really, and that plays into the whole, using lean root cause. Like, why? Is it communication? Was it we didn't set enough time to plan? We didn't have the right resources. We have a poor process in a certain area. But I think it's the whole lessons learned, right? And if you don't take time at the end of your project to do lessons learned, as boring as they are, and they're so valuable. And then building that into the beginning of your process. And I know that's like a textbook answer, but it's real. And when you communicate the lessons learned, people hopefully remember. And then they're like, I think someone said something once. Maybe I should go ask so and so how to avoid it next time. And
Yeah.
thoughts, Tracy?
Yes. I was just thinking that I was thinking of leaders who sometimes change direction a lot. They're known for, oh, we're going to go over here now, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to go over here. And then they kind of expect everybody to just jump with them. And it's a little exhausting. So the planning process and then sticking to the plan is really what makes people feel solid, as opposed to, oh, we're running after a squirrel, kind of a thing. And it is exhausting. I've been in that situation as well. So let's see, we have a few more comments. Mike says, sometimes the challenge is finding the balance of the right level of planning, not enough detail or so much detail that it paralyzes forward motion. Yes. Have you seen that before as well, Jen?
Yeah. And I'll admit, I've probably been one of the people who've done too much. I've been on both sides, of not enough and And then too much. And it's culture, it's organization, it's the people you work with, it's what's needed, it's it's maturity. It's hard to figure out what the right balance is, and I don't think there's an equation out there.
Yeah.
I doubt
And
there isn't a pinback.
we're actually working with a client right now, and they're like, well, what do we want you to help us with? And they gave us this like long list, and I'm like, I hope you don't want this done in a day. And so it's like, now let's talk about the order of things first. There might be a natural order here first. So let's kind of order that, see if that order works, and then we can plan for those. So I think that's good. Maria says, not planning enough time for planning. Yeah, that could be a challenge too. Hi, Maria. And I'm sure you've seen that too. They don't either
Yep.
spend enough time to plan, or
Yep.
they don't want to do the planning, like the clients that are asking you to help them plan things.
Right. And with that, I mean, and it's not a perfect answer, but start small, get off the floor or whatever you're doing, and then continue to plan. Even if it's like you plan, you do, you plan, you do, it's better than nothing. And maybe you need to plan behind the scenes and no one knows what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's a comment here as well. I agree with Mike. I used to provide a lot of detail, and when things fell through, it was a real bummer. It makes one hesitant to do it again, if
Hmm.
that makes any sense. And then Mike said, do you ever take into consideration risk when deciding how much detail to plan? And so I know with clients with me, sometimes I give them a high level, and then I say, and if you feel like you want to move that, then we can work on the more detail
Hmm.
scope of that. So because that could be a lot of energy to plan and then not even know if they how serious they are or anything. Do you have any suggestions around consideration of risk when you have to plan?
Yeah, I think if I'm understanding it correctly, or the way I'm interpreting Mike's question is that if we hurry up and go, we're going to be creating more risk. We could have
Mhm.
issues. We could not have the right people. We could be wasting money in the long term, and so how do you talk people, slightly down of that, and then at least start something? Unless he's thinking of the whole, like doing an FMEA and a whole risk analysis and building that into potential landmines that you might step on.
Mhm.
But I think it's to your point, Tracy, it's communicating with the client or leader up front. There's options. We could run, we could have issues, and here's what some of them might be. We could take some extra time or find something in the middle.
Mhm. Yep. And then we have a couple comments. Yes, Tracy, that's a good point. Some top level leaders don't want to receive all the detail. They just want the job done.
And
True.
that's fine.
I know a lot of leaders like that. Just do it. Just make it happen.
Yep.
Over
Yep.
planning can stop you from achieving as well. It amazes me how many people overplan to the degree that they miss the opportunity for change.
Huh.
Yeah, that's true, Liam. I mean, some people have such an intricate plan. And then now there's an expectation that if it doesn't go that way, it's
Mhm.
like, what? Ugh, I spent all this time doing that. So we tend to hold on a little bit more when we do some real extensive planning of things. Yeah,
Mhm.
trust me, that happened to me. I was supposed to do two really big vacations last year, Hawaii and Greece, and I had to let those go. And man, that was painful because I did a lot of planning. And
Mhm.
then David says ungodly amounts of email.
Yeah, and I don't know about now that you have like Slack in the mix, and I feel like a dinosaur, as you get put on those networks. But yeah, I could go down a whole tangent, but yes,
Mhm.
it's hard. It's hard, and it's up to who's your customer, right? And what are their expectations? And it's the internal customer that's really important to think about in this.
Mhm. Yeah, good.
Yeah, we could go on and on. So taking that, right, and thinking about what your roadblock is. And I know we talked about using lean root cause, and so asking why, right? Why am I afraid to start? Why am I procrastinating? Why don't I want to do this? Is it knowledge? Is it time? Is it because people don't care if I plan and they don't appreciate the planning? And if that's the case, then you might have to get over it, right? And just go. You can still plan, and even if they don't appreciate it, they might appreciate the end result, right? And you just have to know that you put the sequence of steps together to actually to get there. Um, So there's a couple examples of what roadblocks might be for people. Obviously, I know a big one, at least for me, that I had to get over is failures. And I hate calling them failures because they're not. They're all learning opportunities, especially when the company doesn't deem them as failures. They also view them as a lessons learned, time to improve. But that sits with people like, oh, I hate to try this again because what if I fail? Or what if it doesn't work, right? We have to go, right? We're adults. You have to move over, use what you learned, and try something different and communicate what you're doing, right? And the why behind all of it. So feel free to add other roadblocks into the chat messages or into the chat so we can see them. Um, and then, start to think about your strategies to overcome. Obviously, you've got, the 5 why, if you want to do a fishbone. But other things are talk to someone, find a resource, start mapping things out. Something I've done recently on some of the things I've had to put together is do something for 5 minutes, right? Not working out. It's just working on your plan or your activity. Just do it for 5 minutes, right? And then maybe that 5 minutes leads into 10. And then you realize you've accomplished so much, so I might as well keep going.
I just want to have one other comment. With so many tools now, Asana, Slack, as everybody was saying before, I was realizing that I was a good planner, but I was forced to use tools that were not really helping me through the process that I was trying to do. Like Asana makes you list out process steps, and I wasn't there yet. I needed more like a mind map. So sometimes we have to stand
Mhm.
back and we have to look at how we're doing the thing. And maybe if we try to do it in a different way, we're going to have more success with the planning. Because I tend to like these webinars, I tend to like think in clouds and like outlines and drawings, and then I move it into like a PowerPoint. And for me to do that in Asana was like, what? And so that was the block for me. So I think just wanted to
Mhm.
mention that as well as a roadblock. And then Liam also said earlier, if you've never been on the journey before, he tends to do the top level plans for those scenarios in particular, which I thought was a good
Mhm.
thing I should bring up.
Yeah, absolutely. A high level plan, right? High level sticky notes, high level something. My plan is now my pink sticky notes. It's my, visual Trello board where I write the action and the date. And every morning I can reprioritize or confirm if I'm getting things done. Again, I like lists, and that's kind of like a list. But do something, right? Understand why and get over it and move forward because we have to. We really have no choice. So now what really, here are just a couple options. You can do them in any order that you want, but I feel like decisions, at least for me, hold me back sometimes. Getting the right people in the room to make decisions, understanding where we're going to go, right? It's a block, right? You have to get over it and figure out what the answer is going to be. Get out of your head. Visualize the past, exactly what Tracy and I know someone mentioned in the chat. Brain dump, map it out, get the right people in the room to kind of put things in order. Prioritize, right? We might have so much on our brains that we can't do anything that we just need to reprioritize. Like this, I can reprioritize based on the date. The 4Ds: do it, delegate it, delete it, or defer it, right? Really use that in your daily tasks as well as your email. Make a tracker, especially if you're on a team, right? Who, what, when, where, risk mitigation, contingency planning, full on FMEAs, and then plan to win. Status at a glance, that's the SAG. Regular meetings, taking advantage of stand ups, visuals, right? If we start to see some wins, just like that check mark I love, that instant gratification, you might be able to get people on board to get going and to continue on for a repeatable result. So, no matter what, take ownership in this, right? Understand what's holding you back. Think about the results. Dig deep. Figure out what your roadblocks are, how you're going to overcome them. What's that experience you want, and then go. And this is my new story I mentioned to Tracy and Elizabeth today. Is my in-laws are some of the most generous and welcoming people that I know, and they're they're from New York, East Coasters, and every Thanksgiving, the entire the Zuckerman family comes in, so my mother-in-law. And every time you walk into the house, it's just loud, loud, loud people. They are so excited to see you because they love you and they want to hear how things are going and they want to see the kids. But when you walk in at 3 in the afternoon to 25 people shouting your name, it's a lot, right? And it's like, oh. But within 5 to 10 to 20 minutes, it's so fun. You're getting caught up, you're talking, you're relating, you're engaging. It's awesome. And at the end of the night, you're like, I want more. And so I relate that to this because I remember that I need to remember that I want more when I'm going into it. Yes, I'm going to have 25 people yelling my name. Um, that's just something I have to deal with, get over it, because I know that the end experience is going to be great. Um, which moves us into the strategic planning concept, right? We talked about how we're putting all these things together, but now how do you take your department or your business to the next level, or at least create some sort of accomplishments for the next 3 to 6 months? And the cool thing with strategic planning is that it's not just for big businesses, it's for anyone, functions, individual leaders. And if you don't like the word strategic planning because it's big and scary, let's call it creating a roadmap. Really, all it is, it's determining your roadmap to get to your true north, right? Understanding that you have a destination that's sometimes challenging to achieve, but it's where you want to go. And why do we like strategic planning? I mean, especially for leaders, they should be totally game for this. It's visual, people can see it, right? It's time bound, hopefully, with when we want to achieve what. It obviously, it also helps us overcome some hurdles because it's putting a plan in front of us that we have to execute. It prevents people from losing sight, right? It's identifying those clear goals, and when some bright shiny light happens, and leaders come up with these new ideas, right? Does it align with our strategy? And if the answer is no, is it better than what we had in here before? And if the answer is yes, we go for it and we reprioritize. If not, we put it on a sticky note behind us and keep it for later. It's a tool to get everyone on board. Again, communication tool. And then the last one, if you are an individual contributor, it's also a way to keep your team on track moving forward when you have leaders with bright, shiny light syndrome, right? You can manage that, but you can still keep your team focused on the plan, the measurable objectives, the initiatives that they're working on. And so with this, a high level process is starting with your vision, working all the way around to your action plan. And we're going to talk about that in a hot second. And something I know that that Julie, my business partner, and I really focus on is working with the company to teach them this process. So it's repeatable, they understand it, and at some point they can manage it themselves, right? And have that ownership. There's also a lot of value of having a third party come in because we don't get involved in politics. We can ask the challenging questions. We can potentially piss people off, and we're not going to get, well, we could get fired, but we're not an employee that's going to get fired from the company. But we definitely want to help our people understand the process. And so taking just a quick look at this, I'm going to touch on a few of these, is you're starting with the vision, right? Hopefully your company has a vision. Hopefully it's motivating you and your employees to get somewhere, right? It's the impact on the world is kind of what a vision statement includes. What does amazing success look like? What's that destination? And visions normally stay consistent throughout. It's not something that's getting revised every month or every year. But then when you're doing your planning, it's so important to understand current state. I love all things current state. Joint pivot cycle. Yes, absolutely, Tracy. I love that. Um, Current state is how we improve, right? We have to understand what's going on. What numbers are you using as a function or a company? If you're not measuring anything, how do you know if you're winning? Are they leading indicators or are they lagging? Do you even understand that, right? That's a huge deal because those numbers obviously help you make decisions, maneuver when needed. Numbers as examples are anything from your CRM, processing time, lead times, customer conversion time. Um, Lots of numbers out there. If you have any questions, please reach out. I love all things numbers. Another part of the current state gathering are voices. And voices, like I have a lot of favorites here. Voices are one of my favorites because if you're not listening to your customer, someone else will. They're the reason we're in business, and we're not going to hit their goals if we're not asking questions or engaging them. I have to listen to the business. The numbers are going to tell me something. If I'm personally not making money, then I need to maybe refigure what I'm doing over the next couple years. But if I'm doing well, then by golly, joint pivots in my future, which makes me happy, right? Because this is what I want to do. Employees, right, are just as important, if not more important than your customer. Because if you're not listening to them, again, someone else will. They're the ones who have ideas on processes, improvements, ways to do things different. Do they like coming into work? If not, maybe we need to reevaluate our culture, how we're treating people. And then lastly, our processes. And if you can't listen to your processes, I'm going to ask if they're even documented and known. Are they repeatable? Are they cumbersome? Are they haphazard, which means you could have quality issues? So all these different types of voices that we want to hear, or at least start asking questions. And a lot of that starts in this next part of current state process mapping, understanding what current state is for all functions: marketing, legal, HR, operations, production, supply chain, procurement. You have to ask and understand how things are working. Even if it's one person wearing many hats, we need their input. My favorite, not super favorite example right now is I'm working with one company and I've been talking with 3 or 4 of their leaders, and we've been mapping out their org chart, their high level process map, a lot of roles and responsibilities. And I've been talking with them for a while and I'm like, I think we're like 80% there. And then I had a conversation with one person. And guess what? My map grew, it doubled. I talked to the person who did the back office stuff, who did office administration, who was doing HR, recruiting, posting job descriptions, interviewing. And it was eye-opening for many reasons. So it's so important to talk to the people that do the work. You can't assume that you know everything. I'm moving out of current state. You've got ideal state. Yes, I have a unicorn. What does your company or department look like if money or time or technology wasn't an issue? What would be the bells and whistles that you want, right? Again, it plays into your vision a little, but ideal state is going to ebb and flow as your company grows, competitors come in, people change and turn over and whatnot. And then you go into future state, which is more of your reality. What's the 3 to 6 to 9 months, probably 1 to 3 years for many businesses. Some businesses are looking at 10 years for major, obviously major initiatives. But that's when you have to start actually putting what it's going to be. And that really identifies some of the gaps of where you're going to be planning these projects to improve. And then talent. This is so big. And at least from my experience working for big businesses, it wasn't talked about enough. Some companies are pretty good at it, but we have to be honest with what talent do we need. And even as a leader of a function, sometimes you have to put your ego aside and you need to identify talent that you need that might be smarter than you in different ways, that might eventually take your job, right? But isn't that what we want? We want great people on our teams who want to be there, who are going to add value constantly. And so it's so important to understand what that might look like, whether it's succession planning, the next generation of leaders, if we're growing in a new segment, what talent do I need to go find and get and bring on board? And then you've got priorities and action plans. So starting to understand what those initiatives or activities are going to be to close the gap from current to future, and prioritizing what's important to you. Is it cost? Is it quality? Is it service, efficiency, et cetera? Making sure you understand what that is, because that's how you're going to figure out what you're going to be doing next. And again, I'm sharing all of this because, again, if you have to get something done, these are some processes to fall back on, at least to start getting you thinking about how you're going to do something. And I've got 2 quick examples that I wanted to share. They're very similar. One's a transportation company that's developing technology, and another one is like an outsourced HR company. And we're filling in the blanks, but know that we're not forcing them to sit down for 16 hours. We're gathering information as we work with them. Key point, we are continuing to move forward and do things and roll things out. We're not stopping the business. We're continuing to work and we're making small changes, which I actually like sometimes more because it is small habit changing, right? We're making small tweaks to processes. We can adjust as necessary. So 2 examples. Feel free to reach out if you want more of what this actually looks like with those companies. But it's pretty cool. A lot of foundational work, a lot of process documentation, roles and responsibilities. Again, they're growing. They want to run. We're building that foundation to make it easier for them. And then obviously with strategic planning and whatnot, outsourcing is great. So between Julie, Tracy, Elizabeth, and myself, call us, right? We're the third party that's going to come in and ask those challenging questions. Sometimes you just need to outsource because you need to bring the skill set in. And then we leave, right? It's great. That's my sales spiel. Uh, but
Leaving is
then,
a good
oh,
thing, right? Like if they want you to leave, you don't try to hang on when they don't want you to hang on,
no,
right?
no,
You're
that's
still,
not fun for anyone. No, no, no. Squeeze them dry. Not what we're doing. Not what we're doing at all. And so now you're so excited, right? You can tell I'm super excited. We talked about how to focus on the results and the experience, right? We talked about roadblocks and getting over it. You've got a couple new ideas I hope that you're going to try, whether it's asking why, figuring out something is blocking you. You're pumped, right? You're like, ooh, strategic planning. I think I want to try that. Oh, but my leader, my boss doesn't like to plan. He shoots from the hip. I get my instructions every morning, right? I'm sure some of you are like this, and that's not fun at all. So how do you sell it to them? How do you get them excited? And there's a couple things on here. I'd feel free to add, other items. You know, for me, what I've learned recently is selling the experience, telling a story with data and a high level plan, right? They don't care about the details, as I know we talked about that earlier. Get them excited about what they're going to achieve and when they're going to achieve it. Identifying, obviously, milestones, some risks in there, what could go wrong, but how you're going to overcome it. And tell them why this is a good thing. Why does it matter for their company? Why is it good for their customers and their employees and their bottom line? It's work, but it's so valuable to get people on board when you want to plan. And you know what? If you can't get someone on board and you know you're not, and they're just telling you to go get it done, don't not plan. Just go to your desk and make your own plan and gather the resources on your own. And so now what? Right? We've talked about, all of this, selling, getting people excited, but what are you going to do next? What are you going to do when you leave this webinar? Are you going to go refill your water? Are you going to make some notes? Are you going to try the 5 minute thing? Trust me, I really like the 5 minute thing right now. Try something, right? Call a friend, talk it out. I called Julie a bunch. Julie, I just can't get started. What do I do? Just talking out loud helps you kind of figure out some of the next steps. I know Tracy made the point earlier, mapping out high level activities, getting sticky notes, doing something is definitely valuable. Don't hesitate. And so if you like what you heard, you want more, you've got more questions about overcoming roadblocks, this whole lessons learned concept and doing it in companies where they view, unfortunately, shame as the name of the game. That was pretty awesome. Reach out. We've got free consultations. And I know just like Just in Time Cafe, we've got remote training options. We both believe in train the trainer methodologies where we want to help companies learn the skills and run with them. We also have lean assessments and deployment recommendations. So if you think that's something you want in your function or at your company, please reach out. There's many different options of how to focus on it. And with that, I'm handing it back over to Tracy to talk about what she has upcoming in 2 weeks, which is I'm very excited to
yes.
listen in on
Well,
that.
we do have a question. How do you take
Okay.
measurements in the life portion of your life is a question from Dion.
How do you take measurements? So, like if I'm accomplishing goals for my personal self,
Sure. Yes.
um, I think, oh, yes, perfect. So I guess I guess on what it is, right? Is it exercise? Is it eating better? Is it volunteering more? Is it being more present with your children? I know for me, honestly, like I have these things written down because I need to at least have to have it on a post-it note in front of me. And now I do have a Peloton, so there I can actually track and how many minutes I'm working out. So that's a win. But I think it's defining those goals and expectations and writing it down and then following up on it on what you've accomplished, keeping it simple because sometimes it's not fun to overdo it for yourself. But
Yeah.
making that plan and applying the same concepts.
And some of those metrics can be fun. I'm going to tell you two creative metrics I have in my life. One is how many days I get to work in my RV parked at the beach. And I was actually just thinking of this metric yesterday because I was looking at my RV thinking, hey, it's February 3rd and I haven't taken my RV out yet. And I'm taking it out next week because I didn't hit that metric yet.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the other second favorite metric of mine is I love Halloween. And so for many years, my metric for Halloween was how many days in Halloween in October that I got to dress up or wear a wig.
Yeah, because it's enjoyment to you, right? And you've defined what that is,
That's
right?
right.
And you've set some goal to accomplish it. And so
Yeah,
it's
exactly. I
and
mean, I don't
we're probably
volunteer just during the Halloween. I mean, I can't wear a
oh,
costume
okay.
every month, well, although I sometimes try to find opportunities for that too. So, okay, good. Do we have any other questions for Jen? I'll see if there's any more, but while we're waiting for any additional questions, I'll go ahead and talk about our next webinar coming up Tuesday, February 18th, featuring Mark Graben. If you haven't heard of Mark Graben yet, where have you been? Mark is a huge influencer in the lean community. He's written many, many books, including Lean Hospitals and his latest book, Measures of Success. He also has his very own popular podcast and blog. We are very excited to have Mark as a guest. He's coming to the cafe to talk about his process behavior charts and give you some examples of how they're used specifically in healthcare. So you definitely don't want to miss it. It's going to probably be a very popular webinar. All right, looks like there are no more questions. Let's see, do I have any questions for you? So tell me about some of these other creative life measures you have, Jen. I'd love to hear about a few more of those because I think happy hours are one of the ones that I picked up on.
Yes. I would say we probably have about one bonfire a week. We have spent more money on wood this year than I actually just did our credit card breakdown and I was like, wow, we've got a lot of money going to like Menards and Lowe's and now a local delivery for I forgot what it's called, but a whole boatload of wood. Um,
Mhm.
Something recently, you know how you get your on your phones, I don't know if it's on the Droids as well, but the iPhone will give you the measurements of your screen time.
Mhm.
Accord, yes, thank you. Um, it tells you how much you're on your phone. And a couple weeks ago, I was sitting with my kids and we were watching, I don't know, Disney Plus now because we have it. Um, and I'm like, I'm on my phone doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'm sitting next to them and I tell them they can't be on their iPads. So I actually started knitting again. I learned when I was a kid, and so now my goal is instead of spending hours on my phone or watching well, I'm going to still watch useless TV like Real Housewives. I'm trying to do something that's not on my phone to set a better example for my children. Um, and then
Mhm.
something else is we try and read half hour a night, whether it's us, FaceTime with a grandparent or something. So mine, I would say mine, a lot of mine current ones are all around my children.
Mhm.
Um, being
Yeah.
active with them, having some of these planted in my head to motivate us to do something different, get engaged, be present.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to be honest. I mean, I have kids as well. And there have been times where I've really wanted to do something with them. I say, okay, I'm going to read with them every night. And, it made a huge difference when I actually put it on my calendar. Okay. How sad is that? I know, but it worked. Right. So I'm like, read with my kid.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I've noticed that if it's not on my calendar, sometimes it doesn't get done.
Doesn't happen. Mhm. I'll
All
put
right.
I'll put a lot of reminders so it'll continue to remind me so I don't miss it.
Exactly. So I think we only have one last slide, right? Is that right? And we're done?
Yes, yes.
All right. So thank you everyone for coming to the cafe and spending your time with us. We are very excited to be relaunching our cafe. So thanks for joining, and we're going to keep you posted on any upcoming events. And we just want to say enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, Jen, for joining us and coming to
Yes.
the cafe. It was really fun, and I learned something.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.